Says the benefit does with distinct advantage. In most cases, the military issues Canada Russia. They lost lifestyle.
Proactively addressing this and working towards doing that. Working on filling the buildings, the vacant buildings of the businesses that are out, that have moved out, on Huntington Street. We have a buyer and that one's sold, and we're getting, another business in to get that worked out. And we have some other people that are seriously interested in our building on Central, where the road made. So that'd be great to get that impact back to our community. While we work that out. Another project we've been working on is the parking, the downtown parking. We'll be bringing that presentation to our boards that we have to get their opinion on that, and then we'll be coming to you with more details once we get their input back. And the public's input back on that as well for the downtown parking program and situate, things that we've done there. Main Street construction will start in the next couple of weeks here. So we'll be ready for that. One of the best flies, and we'll be ready to have that down. And not necessarily exciting about that, but stay tuned to Crown City Rising. That will be a helpful point for everybody to pay attention to know the latest updates. Attended a job fair today at Randall School. That was great to see our sixth grade students came up and explained to me what they would like to do, what they're planning on doing for a job, and what they plan to do, and all about that job. So it was it's great to interact with them, and great to meet some neat kids that there were there. Some of them I recognize their last name, and I would say, what's your father's name? And they would say Dad. Somebody in the audience. But they're great kids, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. With the retirements path and coming up, we Bush and Officer Bush and Lummel. We had a nice walkout ceremony for them. Lummel's are one of our canine dogs, so hopefully we're working on some funding to get the grants to hopefully replace Lummel, but Lummel is retired and certainly will be missed. One of my favorite employees. And then we did get notification that our IT Dave Stathis will be retiring at the end of the month, as well as which we'll identify in thorough later in this month. I'm sure you'll be at our next meeting and continue to come. But we'll also be listening their input as well at the end of the month. But we do have another meeting before that, so there will be something to identify them, and you'll be looking for your emails for that. If you can come to that event, that would be great. That is all I had. The mayor's report. Nobody has any questions? We'll go to Ward 1 for.
Mostly quiet in Ward 1. Had a conversation with a few people about the way the snow, we had snow come and go and rain in between, and then melts the snow along with the rain. Had some concerns about flooding, although I will congratulate DPW with the giant drain clean out they did this summer and fall. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. We still have some severe problems on a couple streets when it backed up. Alvina is one of them. And that's something we've been talking about how to rectify. And I passed that on that, a couple streets are on our radar. We know that it needs to be looked at. Today I had the opportunity to go with my old crew, Mr. Carpenter's current crew, fire department today to check out the Garcia's fire. Got to tour the building. I was overly impressed with what our firefighters did with the amount of heat. If you've ever grilled with wood or charcoal, you recognize what different degrees of heat can do. Well, this is far, far beyond that. And the amount of heat they had in just one corner of the building, it's amazing the block is there. Did not spread. They did a wonderful job. I don't know if it's been determined whether the building it was in can be saved. Garcia's, to my understanding, a couple bundles of shingles and some cleanup in the kitchen from some water damage, and that restaurant could be able to make a recovery. I thought it was wonderful that it never jumped buildings, and there's not even scars on the adjacent buildings. I thought it was so congratulations to all of our fire department, everyone who was there that helped. I understand the building owners even came down to try and help while everything was going on. I thought that was wonderful. I also got a chance to go just down the road and for the Salvation Army today. Was very, very happy to see the food pantry in there. Well stocked, unbelievable. And for those people in the community that think, oh, maybe I make a little bit too much, and I probably shouldn't go there, but I'm not quite making ends meet in my refrigerator or my pantry. Go and check it out. The limits were much higher than I thought, and they now allow people to come twice a month instead of once. Thought that was wonderful. I got to check out the warm-up room, or I believe that's what they call it, the warming room. Well done. They added 4 beds this year. They had some concerns that the mayor went down and helped them address. I think they've got action plans for all of those. I was glad to see such a nice, big, clean area for people that can't get out of the cold to come into. And the last thing was we talked a little bit about the youth program. I wasn't aware that this is 30+ kids, could be as many as 50 kids in good weather when that many walk. Not only do they come, have activities, things to do, and as we all know, if we're active, we're not getting into trouble. And it gives these kids something structured to do, and they go home with not only hot meals for themselves, but if they have little brothers and sisters who aren't old enough to come, they try and make sure there's enough food to send home for the rest of the children in the family. I found that to be a wonderful program. I thought the building was nice and clean and well kept, and certainly a great add to the community. That's about it.
Great, thank you. Ms. Dawn.
I have several departments to thank. First of all, I want to thank the police department for helping out with what the SUNY students call St. Patrick's Day, because they're not here for St. Patrick's Day. And other neighborhoods might not have been aware of it, but several within Ward 2 were aware of it. I sent an email to the town gown committee, which I was not able to attend yesterday. And a couple of the points were that there were so many people who were drunk and disorderly. They roamed down the street in crowds. Several carried what seems to be open containers. There are just too many people for the police to ticket everybody. And I'm so grateful for the people who worked overtime and who were pulled in before their shift and who were carried over after their shift should have ended. I would like to see some university presence in those neighborhoods that host students. I think just the proximity of seeing some college officials or college police cars would help quiet things down. They certainly can identify more of these people than we can, because it's not necessarily my immediate neighbors, although I was very distressed to see when 3 police cars did show up at the top of Clayton Avenue, to see the people in the house parties around jeering the police. That's really distressing and uncalled for, especially when police are managing in such a respectful, calm way with the crowds. I want to stress that this sort of thing doesn't happen in any other neighborhoods that I'm aware of in this city. People tend to stay away, and so you may not know what's happening. Those of us who are in those neighborhoods feel like we can't leave the house. You can't enjoy the peace and quiet of your own home. You can't go out in your yard, not that Saturday was any night to, or any day to enjoy being outside necessarily, but we'll deal with this again in the spring. We deal with it in the fall. And your choices are to either hunker down inside and crank up your own music or TV, or leave town. And honestly, I left town. I guess that's it for that, but I really, really appreciate the police presence, and I appreciate council's continued funding of police overtime, because it is needed. There was trash everywhere. There were people who were too inebriated to walk, who had to be carried by their friends. And we do have, children who live in the neighborhood, and they're witnessing all of this, as well as just the screaming and the foul language. Unless you think that I'm anti-student, and I bring this up, I'm really not. I wanted to live in a mixed neighborhood. My husband works for the university. We like students. So please don't think that I'm anti-student. I'm just anti-out-of-control students. Anyway, I also want to thank the fire department for their great efforts in saving the block. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the DPW for their relentless attack on the snow and ice, allowing people to get to their jobs and do their thing. I'm a teacher, and they've nixed many a snow day. It can be kind of disappointing from my perspective, but whenever I hear those big heavy trucks coming over the hill or driving around, or if you are worried and you happen to be behind one, you know you're going to be all right. So thank goodness for the DPW. They also do things like remove shoes from wires over neighborhoods. And unfortunately, now I have to talk to them about graffiti that needs to be removed. And really, they have much more important to do. And they do it all the time. And I want to thank the codes department. We've been talking about the trash problems and how people are finding. I got more calls about how the new bins are unsightly and they're not Group A. And you talk to people and you say, yes, but it's winter and it's hard to drag them over the snow. And people are still figuring out how to stash their large bins. The codes department is aware of that problem. They are talking to people about it. They've also, you remember they did the survey of all of the sidewalks, and they've sent notices to all the people who had the most egregious sidewalk problems. And they're giving people time to deal with that. But one idea is to have TOMA start up the sidewalk program early, because it's very difficult to find somebody to do that kind of work. So it'd be helpful if they started taking names and allowing, figuring out who was approved, so that they could start lining those up and people could find the workmen to fix their sidewalks earlier rather than later. So I think I called Toma about that, haven't followed up. And let's see. Oh, I signed up for No Mow May. I hope more people signed up for No Mow May. Gonna put the sign in my window. And happy to be reminded about the Crown City Rising website again. Thank you. I'll be talking to people about that. And I think that's it for me. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Ward 3.
Ward 3 is quiet. Haven't got anything this time.
Ward.
Okay. Ward 4, we did have the town and gown committee yesterday. And Ms. Lopez, the chief of diversity and inclusion, came and spoke to us. And a lot about the Juneteenth activities that the college is planning. And other activities that the college and the city can work together on. So that was great. I did have several constituents talk to me about our agenda item number 1. And you want me to do Maria's story?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be fine.
Okay, last Wednesday, my partner Jean and I were leaving right around almost to dusk to take a walk around the block and mail some letters. And across the street at Tompkins and Pasley, where you would go into the college to go to the PER center and student life, there was a car pulled over there, and there was a gentleman who was on the ground. He was on his knees. And young lady got out of her car and was trying to help him, obviously struggling. And he has a chronic disease. So, so Jean and I went over, we helped him into her car. He lived up the street, up Tompkins Street a little. And we asked Maria if she wanted us to come and help. We really shouldn't have asked. We just would have said, you know, we're going to help you because you're going to need help getting him in the house. So we got in the back seat, and I realized that I recognized him as one of the constituents that when I was going around campaigning, that I had stopped at his house. And so, and I knew exactly where his house was. So we got him home, we got him out of the car. It took Jean and I to hold him. He's a very slight man, but dead weight kind of thing. And so I said we were going to get him into the house, but he could barely put one foot in front of the other. I said, do you have a wheelchair? He said, yes. So Maria went right up the ramp, went in the house, got the wheelchair, brought it back down, rolled him up the ramp. We got him in the house, got him in his chair, got his coat on. He had water Maria had brought. He had walked down to the gas station to get potato chips. That's why he was out and about. She took care of his cane, and she just took care of everything. We left our name and number with him. She left her name and number. So we got outside, the three of us, and Maria is a SUNY Cortland student. She's student teaching at Cortland City High School, Spanish. And she said he was waving, she said, and people just drove past. So she had turned into to go to the Student Life Center. She turned around and came back out again. So St. Practice Day, we didn't have any problems. But
I guess Maria wasn't there.
I would guess she wasn't.
She wasn't.
So, you know, for every story we hear about, you know, students not being at their best. Here's Maria.
Thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 quick points. Similar garbage disposal concerns, in the neighborhood of some bins being missed. Not a lot, but a few bins being missed. And other constituents certainly called on the local law number 12. Concerned about what use might be proposed, as well as people wanting to hear what's going on in the wards from us as a county council. And so wanting to hear that more than once a month, but on a regular basis as we meet. And the last one, quick shout out to the DPW. As someone that routinely was looking at whether or not to close the college at TC3, I appreciate knowing that our folks are out there making it possible and giving me a heads up of what's going on by the sounds of the clouds out and about. They get up to where we're at, then I know we're probably in a good shape. So, well, thank you.
Kurt,
On March 1st, we had fireman negotiations, it went well. Firemen were very professional. There's nice long meeting, but the end of the month, we'll have our next meeting. So it went well. Everybody was very receptive to each other. It was a good meeting. So regarding the tow stuff, I've been in touch with Food Moose a couple times, and if you give them the street addresses, like where the problem is, they'll get in touch with the driver and they usually correct that problem right away. It was really good. I called them today because people were asking about the new second round of votes coming out because there's a little delay. They're going to be here in 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, the next round of votes, the small votes, the large votes are called.
Yeah.
So that's a big fact. Yeah. That's all I have.
just to piggyback off that track real quick. That meeting with them today, that is the situation where, you know, they had a truck go down and there's been a couple of creeks that got missed completely, so. They're trying to redo the routes based on traffic, so we're still trying to work that out, so it's being a little more patient. Thank you. Okay.
Just a couple of things, Officer Bush, any Bush's dog would rumble?
Alone,
Love him.
alone, yeah.
He's your favorite puppy because he doesn't bark back?
But we have another one at this court. They're always happy to see it.
On a serious note for everybody, this Sunday, March 12th, is the 10th annual St. Balfred's event at the St. Red Jug Pub. You guys can be involved. I know they raise a lot of money for these kids. And I believe the fire department's gonna have a couple of special things going on there with a couple of people that are sick and a couple people that got healed. So this should be a good event to attend if you guys can make it. Probably use the gallon and probably got dropped. I want to bring that.
Yeah, that's a good point, and donations are accepted.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. It starts at 1 o'clock. Everyone.
I did have one individual that couldn't wait for the small folks to come in. The garbage was kind of backed up for about 4 weeks, so we didn't get some of the larger ones over there until the small ones arrived. It's my understanding she's quite happy now. Certainly our city streets are taking a fall this winter, and I'm sure DPW will be on top of these once the weather's permitted. And they can work at them, but be patient with potholes and everything. They fill them when they get to them. No different than the 8th ward. Also attended Officer Bush's retirement ceremony. It was very, very moving for those that haven't witnessed that. All our police agencies in the area attended, as well as retirees of from the police department. It was very moving. Mayor, myself, and city attorney also met with Spectrum Cable today, something that Mayor kind of left out a little bit. And we're just trying to work through some of those issues regarding the contract and everything. And I'm sure there'll be some more information passed on once we get to some point down the road.
It expired 18 years ago.
Oh.
That time. It was written, Mayor Wall signed it. A little bit outdated, so we're trying to get these things caught up.
Well, we've been waiting for 18 years, we're all set.
We received, so we should be. But there's more to come on that, I will bring that up.
Sorry. That's all I have for the eighth ward. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask one thing? I'm the liaison for the water treatment plant, and I did have a long conversation, productive conversation with Bruce Adams, but you'll be hearing from him later in the meeting, so didn't go on and on about him, but that's it.
Yes, yeah, we had a very productive meeting today, probably jump on that real quick with the county, we had a meeting with the county today too, with a lot going on, but for rural hosting, which they've agreed to do that, which is great, just for our environmental committee too, so they've agreed to do that, so that'll be coming to the council, so we haven't even begin to do that part of it. So that's good stuff, right? So, and we're able to discuss more on the leaching line, which is, impacts, won't impact us as much as the rest, but county taxpayers as well, because they're gonna get savings there. That's something that started 20 years ago, I hate to say, but we're back at it, so it was very positive, and I think we're finally moving those rocks with boulders, if you will. So that was all good stuff. All right, thank you for the reports. Approval of minutes. I'm sorry. Mr. Beckwith, is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Resolution. Agenda item number 1, adopt local law number 12, 2023 to amend chapter 300 to allow the building or property purpose that serves a substantial public benefit.
Resolved, the common council does hereby adopt a local law to amend chapter 300 of the city administrative code to allow for building or property repurposed and serves a substantial public benefit. And be it further resolved that the local law shall read as follows.
So. Let that be resolved. So on that one, I would like to, the plan was, this was went to planning to have addressed planning to get their, I just want to address a couple of comments as well. But I wanted to get it to planning and have them do it. So I'd like to move this and then move it and second it and then table it. I'd like it to go back to planning, but I'd like to have some more discussion after we move it and table it.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Move it. Back with the move, this Carter, second. And it'll move and table it to the next time certain, which is our next meeting. I just want to address a couple of concerns. Number one, this is actually to enhance or benefit more than what we have right now. In current law, it could go that it would go to the planning commission would respect, and I was a DBA chair for many years, so I respect that even more. But both boards have to review it. So both boards reviewed a special use permit. So in this application, it'd be a special use permit that we need to be done. Both those boards gotta have to do it, and then that could be the end of it. So this is actually enhancing it better than what we had before, because that has to come back to us. So if your constituents, which we are elected by our constituents to represent them, and if it's specific to any specific ward or the best interest of the city as a whole entirety, then it comes back to the elected body that looks at that. So it's actually a way to enhance it. So it's more to enhance it than it was to detract from. Because those other systems will fill in the place to get it to this point. So before it could have been, yes, go forward. Now it's based on the record. So it actually enhances it. So it's actually better than, and I would want to identify also, this was never intended to direct it at Parker School. So it was never intended to do that, so we do not have RFPs back for Parker School, so we are all in hopes that it'll be something positive of the like to do that. We definitely recognize that there's a daycare problem, you know, and we're working with the non-for-profits and everybody to try to help with those daycare problems. That's our purview, other than we could do everything we can to support and help them. And I personally have done a lot of time in working towards that and making that happen. So recognize that. So I just want to make sure we identify that. This has nothing to do directly with Parker School. However, it could be a benefactor of that for sure. This could be a good case that happened. But I was hoping to get the law out and done before that RFP came back, so that accusation couldn't be made. So none of us know what the RFP is gonna be, but it's not gonna happen now because we have, planning didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't get it to planning. So rather than rush it, let's go back to planning. Obviously, the planning member here that has a valid point to discuss it, maybe get further information and understand it a little bit better, because that's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of putting a committee together, which is politically appointed as well. So I think that's better to have it on another layer is what we're creating than not. So I just want to clarify that. So if anybody has any questions or more discussions, I'll be glad to do that now. Otherwise, we'll table it for the next meeting and.
So I can see where people, I thought Parker School, it's got Parker School written all over it.
Good, and it's a perfect time and understand that. I'm not gonna not say that that is not planning ahead and understanding that that would become a problem at Parker, could become a problem at Parker School. I don't know what that is, but knowing what that is, I think it'd be better to have the common council have the last say than just rely on the permit and. Does that make sense?
I do. So when I'm reading this, as far as the local law, are we saying that the planning commission itself would be putting forth an application to common council or for a recommendation?
Recommendation, they're advisory board only, right? Planning commission, they have recommendations and they have certain specific oversight by law according to our charter, but then they become advisory to us.
And that's what I understood as well, based on what discussion you just had. My concern is some of the language specifically notes application as far as their immediate application, they've already moved down the road. Per se, or special permit approval must be preceded by the declaration, of the common council. So shouldn't it be thereafter? Or
All that AJ.
So that's-
that.
I'm just making,
Yeah, that's.
make sure that we get our language.
Sure, so,
That's
so in the first instance, typical special use permit, if that would be allowed with such a designation, that would already be listed in the charter. Right, if something that someone was applying for whatever property that they're talking about, if they needed a special use permit, that would already be designated within the charter. If it doesn't have that designation, then that use is specifically expressly prohibited. This would address those properties that are abandoned and the like, that don't survive that, don't have the SP designation next to the proposed use in our charter. You know, things that they can no longer be in, whatever the case may be, but the substantial public benefit would be a determination by you good folks first, and then it would go subject to public hearing, and then it would go to planning, most likely county planning first, right? Just like anything else, especially use permit. This just gives the city another mechanism to address those properties, where right now, there's a lot of them that there's no way that we can do that, right? Because those uses aren't listed specifically, or there's no special use permit possibility for the proposed use. If it's not listed, it's prohibited, period, right now.
What's the mechanism on the backside of that? So you have the front door, what's the back door control?
Council's both. They make this determination that what's being proposed could serve a substantial public benefit. There's gonna be huge discussion on that, I imagine. You know, and there's a test that it would have to survive. You know, couldn't harm the properties around it, would have to benefit the community as a whole, those things. Then it would go through the planning process and back. And then back to you guys for that specific zoning.
That's what thank you.
That's the test.
And maybe, maybe some of the language we could flesh out a little more, but maybe that's the language that we use right there. Does that make sense?
That does.
It would only be for things that the special use permit doesn't already address.
Correct.
Take care of that.
Yep, so if something, I can't think of a use right now, but if something could really benefit, again, the community as a whole, and it's not gonna harm adjacent properties. And it's not allowed by special use permit or use otherwise right now. This would give us that extra mechanism. Like if it doesn't say special use permit next to the proposed use right now in the charter, no way, can't happen.
So how, wouldn't this sometimes amount to spot zoning?
That's funny that you asked that. Spot zoning right here. No, and that's the test that this whole test that we're contemplating. If it serves a substantial public benefit, the community as a whole, it's not gonna harm adjacent properties, and there's an extensive review process, the determination, planning review and recommendation, all of those things. Just, we get backed into a corner on some properties because of the way that the laws are written. They'll just continue to sit abandoned. Spot zoning is a real thing, happens all the time, not in this community.
Right.
But this would just give us that mechanism to contemplate whether or not these buildings that have been vacant or unoccupied for years and years, or can no longer be used for the purpose that is designated on those tables in the charter. It could benefit.
And there'd have to be, so it would come to council. There'd be a public hearing,
Substantial public benefit determination, right?
and then it would go to
Right, only if you guys
planning and
make
CBA.
that determination.
Then we make a determination to forward it on to get their preview back, because again, as the mentioned, Mr. Governor mentioned that they're the experts, they have the training, they're the experts, so we would send it to them to get their blessing, and then it comes back to us at that point.
That initial.
Because they're gonna flush out ideas and thoughts that we never thought of. They might say, hey, this is gonna create a density of parking issue, this might do this, those kind of things, then it comes back to us and say, yes, absolutely, 110%, this makes sense.
And what if we were a political body, let's say.
Well,
in
we
the
are.
future, but slanted one way or another, or what if somebody stood to benefit in some way? If they came back with a strong no, is there something in the wording to say that we wouldn't do it, or could we just say,
No,
oh,
but it's up to the,
don't do it anyway?
we'd have to be we're accountable to the voters and we're accountable to all that. I mean, and I guarantee there isn't a media source that's not in this room that's not gonna jump all over that if that was the case and try to do that point based on, you're coming to, we all get calls from constituents all the time. I mean, you deal with things based, well, a lot of times on valid points, right? And so you react based on those valid points. That would be the determination and way factor to be able to do that. But as of now, it would not give us any options to be able to do that, but this gives us that extra layer to be able to have that happen, be able to do it instead of allowing, for example, I use that property that's in your ward that was zone R1. And so then it was on the agenda last month to talk, or last meeting to talk about it, I wasn't here, but it was zone R1 and wanted to be industrial, should be industrial. And so my question was, at what point did it get changed? Why? Why was it R1? It's actually actively being used as an industrial site, never has changed. So that was probably the wrong question, because then the county planning said to me, when I went to go to county planning, he said, when was it done? And that's when we determined that the current codes that we have adopted, zoning has never been adopted, was never adopted properly. So but the answer to the question was, it never was changed. It was just a human error that somebody colored it differently on the charter chart from the county. So we got a big problem. We're gonna be coming back to you to rewrite the zoning law because our zoning law has not been properly filed and not properly built. But that's a whole other issue we'll get to later. But that's an example of where this is coming to hand. Or, for example, 51 Fort Watson, big high rise, is zoned R1. You know, I mean, and so there was a public benefit at some point, and it just happened, but it was never done in a properly or done on a proper procedure to do that as a public benefit that is needed. Sure, at the time it was done, what I say, bad wording, but sold as a senior's home, right? So, you know, with this, we would allow that to be able to say, yes, that is a senior home, it will maintain. We have that front load, they send it to planning, ZBA, and necessary channels, and come back to us after hearing your input to do it again, because then there's special, but then we're not tying our hands to make a property not be able to be utilized in this property.
I hate to oversimplify this, but substantial public benefit kind of covers it. We're doing our job, and our public is the city and each of our wards. We can engage with our ward both the way that they would like us to vote on certain topics as they come up. I think this kind of covers itself. It seems a little simple, but I think that's why it was worded that way. And as long as we're voting the way the people who elected us want us to vote, then I think it's a great idea. It also allows us to fix things that were done incorrectly in the past.
You get the nail right on the head, it's not our personal beliefs, we're here to protect our people,
Absolutely.
we're taking over that, you just gotta remember that.
It's an extra level of scrutiny. But it doesn't limit the city, and if we have a lot of properties that
We do.
can't be used for what they were intended originally. This kind of allows for you good folks to say, this might be a good possibility, will it serve the public? Now we can push it through the review process.
I'll, to that point, and to the point that you made, it may sound simple, okay? But the reality is, we do need to have controls, considering the issue that was raised up, that situation, those circumstances of having an R1, but industrial use in operation. What was the controls on the front side? What were the controls on the back side to prevent that from happening? And so if it was okayed here, but it wasn't okayed on the back end, you have a horse running down the street doing whatever it wants to do.
Right.
And
That was what has happened.
Yeah, see, in my eyes, this resolves that. This helps us get more control of it.
But the language is important to make sure that the language says there's a control at the front, there's a control at the back, and that city council is able to speak for the public both times. That's what I'm in favor of, that's all.
Yeah, I'll have to read it again. That's the way I took the whole thing. We see it and then we see it again.
Okay, so that motion is stable, everybody. Understood. So we'll continue that at the next meeting. Agenda item number 2, approves special event permit, sound device permit, and street closing for Stones community gathering.
Resolved that the common council does hereby approve a special event permit, sound device permit without fee, and Court Street closure for the Stone Soup Community Gathering to be held on April 23rd, 2023, from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Beckwith. Chief, thank you for putting this together and working together at this. This is something we want to keep doing in our community, and appreciate you stepping up to do that. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Councilmember Silverman, Councilmember Pinello, Councilmember Lane,
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson,
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michaels.
Aye.
Agenda item number 3, authorize agreement with Toma Development Consultants for community development services not otherwise provided in grant specific contract.
Resolved that the city of Portland County Council authorizes Mayor Fee to enter into an agreement with Toma Development Consultant to provide administrative and program delivery services as outlined in the agreement to be known as the comprehensive contract under the terms and conditions outlined therein.
I'll move it.
Now, second here. Mr. Beckwith? Any questions? To answer the question on the sidewalk program, I think we started that program, right? We started implementing that.
We haven't, if we're gonna get on this.
Yeah.
So great, thank you.
But we have carryover from last year, I believe, right? So we had to.
And we bumped it up, we still got the same amount of money in there, was it 20, I think we went to 40,
Yeah, so we're.
70, 20 or something like
And
that.
then you'll let us know, we'll come back for more. I think it's very cool. And.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Have a witness?
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michaels.
Aye.
Agenda item number 4, authorize application acceptance of the FEMA and Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program Fire Prevention and Safety.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council authorizes the fire chief to apply for and if awarded, accept the FEMA fire prevention and safety grant in the amount of $21,682 with a federal share of $20,649 and a local share of $1,033. And authorizes Mayor Speed to sign the award if offered.
Ms. Sullivan, Carpenter, any questions on this? Again, we didn't get it last year, but we're trying again. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Move it, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello. Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michaels.
Agenda item number 5, authorize application acceptance of FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program Safer Hiring Grant.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council authorizes the fire chief to apply for and if awarded, accept the safer hiring grant for 2 career firefighters in the amount of $641,500.28. And authorizes Mayor Steve to sign the award if offered.
I'll move. Scott, Stillman, any questions?
Steve, how many people have retired from the department in the last 3 years? Roughly. Because this is a wonderful grant. And it-
3 probably, in the last 3 or 4 in the last 3 years.
Because my fear is that we'd hire people and then
Right, but as time goes on here, we're gonna have more people becoming eligible.
you said half the department.
Yeah, and eventually this will, through attrition, if we decided not to keep people through attrition, retirements, these would already be brought on, we'd have to bring on anyway. And for 3 years, covers all their costs. Each time he's taking care of finding out all the fringes, all the cost, to train them and everything, so. If it comes to fruition, in the long run, it's a great savings to the city.
Is it something that you have to put into effect as soon as you get it? Do you have to hire the people?
No, we have a 180-day recruitment period that we can end at any time.
Okay.
So we have up to 180 days to start the grant and award. But once we go through the hiring process, we can send an email to them and say we want it to start tomorrow or whenever we're ready for it to start.
Right, it would be a wonderful opportunity. I just worry about hiring people and then not having the attrition. You're convinced it's gonna happen.
I can't stand here and say I wouldn't be concerned about it. If that people, that's concern of mine.
Yeah.
But, again, I often say, what if, there's
Yeah.
an opportunity. And Mike reassures me, well, 3 years, we'll see where we're at. So I mean,
Okay.
it's a leap in some ways, but we've worked it out.
Right, thank you.
Good point, but also recognize that the council was proactive in knowing that we had some retirees coming. We're proactive to still with the police and the fire. So that's been a significant help to them to make that happen, so they wouldn't do it. The other thing I want to just take a second to recognize, thank you, Deputy Chief is willing to stay on. He was due to retire on the 15th of this month. But due to some other structural illnesses and structural problems within the fire department that we need the command staff necessary, he's willing to stay on and work his tail off last night to help us there. But thank you, Deputy Chief, for staying on as well.
1 o'clock this morning, I questioned that.
Hoping to get this grant, aren't you?
Go back, Deputy Chief. Go back. Anybody else? Over, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Pinello. Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michaels.
Agenda item number 6, authorized agreement with Clarkson University for consultant services related to research project.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council does hereby authorize Mayor T. Sign consulting agreement 23-11 with Clarkson University, whereby the city agrees to provide in-kind services, including use of space and assistance with installation, sampling in support of Clarkson University's research project relating to a process to extract nitrogen and phosphorus from a dewatering side stream.
Pretty good. We'll get Ms. Lane. I bring our resident expert up to speak of this if everybody can understand it.
Wait, we're supposed to understand it after
Thank
it's
you,
done.
I will endeavor not to get into techno babble, even though this is totally cool. So, we're under Chesapeake Bay, nutrient removal requirements, which means removing nitrogen and phosphorus from our wastewater. Well, one of the highest sources internally of nitrogen and phosphorus is dewatering side streams. So the sludge that's removed from the sewage to get nice clean water that you can stick in the river gets processed through at our plant, something called anaerobic digestion, and then gets dewatered. Well, that dewater, the filtrate from that process can have concentrated levels, of these nutrients in them. And this research project is designed to be able to capture those before they go back into our main process. And so that, could be a highly efficient way of helping to meet this. Now, this is just a pilot, but for Portland to be forward thinking, to be a part of advancing the technology that produces tomorrow's wastewater technology is pretty cool. And there is no financial cost to the city. We're providing space to host the equipment, some labor to assist with setup and collection of samples. We a couple years ago hosted a research project designed to test the ability to do nitrogen removal by active monitoring of ammonia and nitrogen in a biological process. I think it was successful for them. We actually got something cool out of it, which was several mass airflow measuring devices. But I think that it is a positive thing to be involved in advancing wastewater technology for environmental purposes. That Portland does itself proud to be able to foster this sort of thing. Anyway, it's just
I understood everything you said.
awesome.
How did this, did they come to you or did you read about their work and go to them?
No, they did come to us, and I suspect that we've gotten a bit of a reputation. We're able to serve data. So the project 2 years ago that I told you about, that was for a company called Xylem. And, I was able to write software that collected and transmitted data on, basically a 10-minute near real-time basis. And the researcher that was involved in that was just, wow, he was floored. In fact, that company came to us and said, can you tell us how you did that?
Wow.
That was awesome. We'd love to be able to do that in the future in other locations. So you don't tell them.
So how long will this go on?
This looks to be a fairly extensive thing, so I'm thinking 2.5, 3 years perhaps.
Oh, wow. And in the end, if their experiment proves to be effective and more efficient, will it also be less expensive?
Right, so this would be less expensive than the processes needed to remove these materials once they get back into your main treatment process. So yes, that's the idea. And additionally, the removed nutrients are like immediately usable as a marketable fertilizer product. That's really the second benefit from this.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So you're saying finances first, right? You're saying finances and then that's.
I didn't hear this.
I'm thinking that once the students have completed this, we'll publish some kind of paper. Putting together what they've accomplished.
Yeah. More good prep, more water treatment.
That's right.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, again, I think we're ahead of it on a lot of ways. We're
Yeah.
Gonna be recycling our food waste, which is something that needs to happen. You know, we got a lot of good things coming out of that. The committee and Bruce up with that, with the no mow May and all those other. Great. Okay, move it, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Tillman. Councilmember Pinello. Member Lane. Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michael.
Aye.
Discussion items, we have the administrator and finance, position, the manager, so slash manager. So we're down to 2 candidates, and those candidates will be visiting us Monday and Tuesday of next week. If anybody wants to, just shoot me an email sometime, maybe I can set up a 5-minute kind of read through with everybody, so you get a feel for them, and those that are not on the committee, that would be great. I think it'd be great to have you get your input. I'd love to have your input. There's, you know, certain items and areas of, you know, that you see, there are pros and cons that we would like to do. I'm excited about both of them. Certainly, very excited about, getting that help. I think you'll be happy as well. But would like to get a chance on Monday, and Tuesday, you have some time. If you shoot me an email and see if we can work something out, I'll look at the schedule. I don't have it with me.
It's a tight schedule.
It's tight, you know, but I'll try to, if I get 5 minutes even on a walk over, department heads will be all meeting together to be able to have some time with them to have that, so maybe I'll shave time off of that if I have to. But it'd be nice to have a council have to do that as well. So if you do have time on Monday or Tuesday, you're 2 different candidates, so one will be one Monday and one will be the other, so will be Tuesday. So pretty excited about that. I appreciate the committee and the community members that are part of that, department heads and staff that are part of that committee that's putting together. I feel like it's going through a good process. I think it's very positive. I think it's been open and direct, and I think the process should show good fruit out of that. Does anybody have any questions on that? Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up for discussion?
Any of the sessions recorded by chance? As far as that?
No, because as far as the interview process, no, because some of them want to remain. They're not, maybe didn't give their notice yet. You know, to where they're going to go.
I meant for the council thirty.
Down there. So, but it's tough to get everybody in there and not have a public meeting and have that review. I think rather than put it kind of broad across. But certainly, I offer that. Not on the schedule and probably the committee will pick out, but I'd like everybody to get a few minutes with them and just kind of get your impression.
They could be here between 8 and 3.
Yeah, 9, I think 8:30, the first event starts at 8:30, and then they have interviews at, how many else, somebody, 5 o'clock? 5 or 6, it's pretty tight, so we're gonna, you know, I'm gonna do the community event, they're gonna spend some time with the realtor, we're gonna,
3 to 5.
yeah, so the interviews are 3 to 5, so there'll be some time in. But we'll try to make that work out, like, you know, I don't have that schedule in front of me, I apologize. But if you need, just shoot me an email, I can try to work that out, what time works for you, and we can schedule some time that night. Because, you know, I got lunch with them, maybe you can swing by or whatever.
Whoever buys lunch higher.
Yeah, that would be, okay. Right. I'm not gonna acknowledge that. Move to have a motion. So then back with all in favor? Back with
Mr. Mayor, did you find out where the
You got it.
guy from
Not. Oh, certain things.